joy to be able to come, particularly on this day. Food. My friend Buddy Rampy told me about the churches that had the best food, and he mentioned this one. He said, be sure to hit them when they're having a potluck, and then you'll do great. So thank you very much, Pastor Dylan. And by the way, Pastors Dylan and Kylie, aren't they wonderful people? Oh, you are so fortunate to have them. I'm proud to say they went to Southern Wesleyan University. They're just a great couple. By the way, you know, Pastor Appreciation Month happened in October. But I hope that doesn't mean for you, like, okay, November, now we're going to quit appreciating them. You know, we're going to appreciate them all year long. And then October is the time where you kind of maybe make that a special kind of thing. But you really are blessed to have them. I know you know that. It's great to see my friends Martha and Kayla here today, too. Also, two of our finest graduates of Southern Wesleyan University. Great to have you here today. God bless you guys. So when I talk to groups, you know, and I tell them what I do, I say I'm not really a professor. I'm a pastor cleverly disguised as a professor. I was a pastor way up north, northern Wisconsin, for 26 years before coming down here a year ago to teach. So I've been saying that, except for I thought I'd better not say that this time, because I looked at your advertisement, and it said that after this service, there's going to be a pieing of the pastors. So I'm not a pastor. I am a professor, cleverly disguised as a pastor today. Oh, I can hardly wait to do the fun stuff after here today. But let me tell you a story. There was a village in Europe, and they were nestled away in the Swiss Alps, just in the shadow of the mountains. And there was a stream that came flowing from the mountains right through the center of their little town. Oh, they loved that stream. It was just the best stream ever. So beautiful, so wonderful. It was fresh, sparkling water. I mean, it was so pure that you could actually drink from it, not get sick. And the children loved to go to the stream, and lovers would take picnics to the banks of the stream. And the water would be flowing by. It was just so beautiful, breathtaking. Every season of the year, there was something beautiful that you could see at the stream. There was an old man who was known as the keeper of the stream. And this is what he did. It was his job. In fact, as long as anybody could remember, that's what he did. He would go way up high into the mountains, and he would pull debris that had fallen into the stream, tree limbs, if an animal died, he would take care of all that. And so he would keep the waters just flowing so beautifully and so purely. And well, after a while, the village had a problem. They ran into a budget challenge. That happens every now and then with towns and communities and families and churches. Even we have budget challenges. And so the city council met together, village council met together. And they said, what are we going to do? And one of the people said, you know, I don't think that guy that keeps the stream, I don't think his job's that super important, is it? I mean, we don't even know what he does. We just see him, he disappears, he goes wandering around, we pay him every year. That might be a place where we could cut in the budget. And so they thought, that's probably a good idea. And so they voted to get rid of the keeper of the stream. And nobody even noticed the difference. They got the extra money in their budget. The stream kept flowing. The lovers still kept picnicking. It just seemed like a good decision for a few months. After several months, people started noticing something began to happen. The water changed. Just a little bit at first, and then a little bit more, started to smell bad. The water became brackish, brown. The children didn't want to play near the stream anymore. The lovers took their picnics to other places. And nobody would dare take a drink out of it. It'd make you sick. And they had a village council meeting, and they said, we got to do something about this. Our stream, the thing that we're most proud of, the most beautiful thing in our little village, now it's all messed up. What are we going to do? And somebody said, I make a motion that we hire the keeper of the stream. We hire him back. And they said, good idea. They voted unanimously to do it. They asked him, and he said yes. And so we went back to the mountains again, and sure enough, there were all kinds of critters and limbs and branches and silt and all kinds of things. Cleaned it all out, and guess what? Before you knew it, the stream was flowing so beautifully, like it was to begin with. It just was beautiful, just like they wanted, just like they needed. And the children came back, and the people began to drink out of the stream again, and the lovers picnicked beside the stream once again. And the stream is your soul. And you are the keeper of your stream. And if in your life you feel like everything is just pressure and hard and struggling and striving through, and you're full of anxiety and, this life is just, it stinks. I'm busy all the time. And your life is turning brackish and brown. And there's not delight and joy in it. You are the keeper of your own stream. So how do we turn this around? How do we do that? Because all of us, we struggle with this at seasons of our life. We find times where it feels like we're just like on a hamster wheel. You ever feel that way? You're just going and going and going. Or life just gets so full of pressure, just pressure. You know what we end up doing? We go like this. We work, and then crash. And then we get up and work, and then crash. Work, and crash. And there's a problem with the rat race. There's a big problem with that. Even if you win, you're still a rat. So is there another way to do it? And I'm proposing this morning that there is. There's a different way, that we're wired to live a different way. It runs countercultural to our American way, actually, right now. Because we have become busier and busier in our lives. And even those time-saving gadgets that we have, like our phone that we put everything on it right there, that doesn't make our life simpler, does it? It complicates it. The other pattern really is found in Genesis chapter 1. You see it in creation. It says there was evening and there was morning the first day. There was evening and morning the second day. There was evening and morning. The Hebrew day began with the evening. It began with rest. And then out of rest came the work. You rest, and then you work, meaningful work. And then you rest, and you do meaningful work. So it's way different than work, crash, work, crash. It reorders the way we think about it, the way we live it. So how do you do it? How do you do that? How do you keep your stream? How do you do evening and then morning rather than doing the rat race thing? I have a clue, and it's found in Psalm 84. Psalm 84, verses 5 through 7. And here's what it says. Psalm 84. Now this was a song that people sang as they went to worship. Blessed are those whose strength is in you, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage, as they pass through the valley of Baca. They make it a place of springs. Now, the valley of Baca, you know what that is? That's when the water turns brackish and brown. That's when you're full of stress and anxiety and the pressures are just too much and you just can't hardly make it. It's like when you get up in the morning and say, oh, I've got so much to do today. What am I going to possibly do? It's like when you're going to bed bone tired and you wake up in the morning and you're still bone tired. It's that. That's Baca. Baca, the Hebrew word literally means crying or weeping bitter tears because it's just too much. I'm going through too much. Too much is on me, more than I can bear. That's Baca. It says when they pass through the valley of Baca, it's a wilderness area, by the way. It's a dry wilderness area. Spiritual dryness. You ever get there? When they pass through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. That the very place that's the hard place for you becomes a place of spring, it says. It springs. And the autumn rains also cover it with pools, and they go from strength to strength till each appears before God in Zion. He says, when you're in this valley of Baca, this place where the stream just hasn't been kept very well somehow, it's a struggle point for you. It's the hard place, the problem place, the place that stresses you out and overwhelms you. When you're in that, it says it will become a place of springs, and the autumn rains will just cover it up with pools. The autumn rains. Now, in Israel, there are what are called the former rains and the latter rains. The autumn rains and then the rains that come at springtime. Up in northern Wisconsin, where I came from, there were no autumn rains. There were autumn snows. And it snowed and snowed and snowed. It snowed in November, and then it would stick on the ground, and it would just stay that way all the way through. So sometimes even in April, we wouldn't see the ground again until April. I remember it made some very interesting Easter Sunday mornings. It really did. Like, I remember once a soloist came out and sang this song. We had a blizzard that Easter Sunday morning. There was like snow all the way up to here. And the soloist came out and she sang a song like this. Wasn't it a morning like this when Jesus rose from the grave? And everybody went, it was not a morning like this. The snow was rolled away and Jesus comes out, hiking through the snow. That didn't happen. It didn't happen that way. And our children's pastor, he hid Easter eggs, these little plastic Easter eggs out on the snow-covered ground. That was silly because everybody could see the eggs. They were just as bright as day. I said, next time you hide white eggs, that'll take care of it. So in northern Wisconsin, it was just like snow. Now down here, it's rain. It's rain. But in Israel, it was like Arizona or like California. What's that?
It snowed on Easter Sunday in Tucson, Arizona.
No way. Serious? No way. Incredible. Incredible. Okay, well, you just messed up my sermon right there. There are dry seasons, and then there are rainy seasons. And in the dry season, when it's really at the end of that, it's just been dry, no rain, and the water's just kind of coming down to hardly anything. The farmers are praying for rain, the autumn rains in Israel. Because when they get the rain, when they get the autumn rain, then they can plant their seeds. They can break up the ground then. They can't even break it up until there's an autumn rain. And it says the autumn rains, when you go through the valley of Baca, the autumn rains, they'll come and it'll cover the whole thing with pools. You'll be able to grow your gardens. You'll be able to flourish. You'll be able to do the things you wanted to do and be the kind of person you wanted to be because the autumn rains are here. This is Fall Fest, so I thought, hey, autumn rains, that'll work out pretty good. Well, how do you get that? How does that happen? And it tells us. The first verse I just read, blessed are those whose strength is in you. That you put your hope and your strength in God. That He's the one who's our source of strength. Have you ever experienced that? There's been maybe a time where you feel like you just couldn't go on and you're struggling with something, and then you stop and you pray about it and say, hey, God, I can't do this. What am I going to do? And you give it up to Him, and then He takes, I'll take it. And then He takes that burden off your shoulders. You ever experienced that? Has that ever happened for you? Oh, it's real. It's real. He can be our strength. And His strength can kick in when our strength is gone. And I've seen this happen over and over again. I've seen people during the darkest and most difficult times of their life, when they've grieved their darkest losses, that God has come with His supernatural grace and just lifted them up and carried them through that difficult time. Has He ever carried you through the storm? That's strength. And it says, blessed are those, happy are those whose strength is in you. The first thing we need to do is go back and remember where our strength comes from. Our help comes from the Lord. He's the creator of heaven and earth. He knows all about you. He's bigger than what's the matter. Don't tell God how big your problem is. Tell your problem how big your God is. His strength is perfect when our strength is gone. He'll carry us when we can't carry on. But then there's another part here. It says we put our strength in Him. That's what gives us the autumn rain. The other part, it says, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage. Pilgrimage. I've never really heard anybody talk about pilgrimage as a part of our spiritual life. We talk about life as a journey, we thought of like that. But what about pilgrimage? What does that mean? When I think of pilgrimage, I think of a bunch of nuns on a tour bus in Israel. I'm on a pilgrimage. And nothing wrong with going to Israel. That's a really cool thing. I just went there about a year ago, and it really was a pilgrimage. A pilgrimage is not a vacation. It's not a tour. It's an experience that's packed with deep meaning. And so when I went on a boat, we crossed the Sea of Galilee, and I could just imagine Jesus walking on the water, and the disciples in a boat. That was the coolest thing ever. And in the Garden of Gethsemane, they're actually right there in Israel. You can see them for yourself. Someday, I hope you go. 2,000-year-old trees, olive trees in the Garden of Gethsemane, the same age as what Jesus would have been. They would have been little trees at that time. And now they're great, big, gnarly olive trees. And I can just imagine Jesus praying there. It was a pilgrimage for me. And a pilgrimage can be like that. It can be actually you pack up your belongings and you go on a trip that has deep spiritual meaning. You can actually do that. Now, wouldn't that be amazing? You don't have to be a Catholic nun to do something like that. You can be a good Wesleyan and go on a pilgrimage. But there are a lot of other kinds of pilgrimages too. And even as I was preparing for this message, I thought I was going to go somewhere else with it. But what I landed on was I needed to share with you a little bit more about pilgrimages. Because maybe somebody here today, you need that because your life's been too dry and you need to keep the stream. And one of the ways you can do that is to think pilgrimage. So you could do the traditional kind of pilgrimage, take a vacation, save up, 2 years from now, go on one. But here's another one. How about if you go on a cultural pilgrimage? That's a kind of pilgrimage you could do. Think about somebody that's different than you are. Maybe a church or a kind of person, a neighbor. And they're different than you. And you go and you learn about them. And you say, what are you like? And why do you do things the way you do them? And you learn. All of a sudden, your view of life and people and the world goes bigger. And you see God in a different way because you understand in a different way. Because they see things different than you do. And you don't mean you agree with them, but you stretch. And that's a pilgrimage across the street. I'm going to be taking a group of my students to a Messianic Jewish congregation next semester. And they do church differently than the way we do it at the church I go to. That's going to be good for them. I'm going to take them to a church where homeless people go to church. And that will be very good for my students. It'll be a pilgrimage because it's an experience packed with meaning. Now here's another way you can do it. You can do an ancestral pilgrimage. Just looking back into your life. And who are your parents and what was their life like? And maybe your grandparents and your great-great-grandparents. And you just keep going back and you go find meaning in those places. Even going back to places where it was very meaningful for you as a little kid growing up. And you go to those places and you find new meaning in the old places. I think that's part of why I go and I visit my father's grave. Because this is an ancestral pilgrimage. It's going back. And the scripture speaks about this. That's why they have all these genealogy charts in the Bible. Because it says who you came from. That's really important. And so you dig there. And you learn more about life there. So my grandpa, he was a bootlegger in Boozy Creek, Tennessee. Now that's interesting. Now I don't really care about making moonshine. I don't really care anything about that. But I want to know what his life was like. And what led him to alcoholism and why he tried to handle things the way that he did. He was a sharecropper, didn't have any money, lived in a shack. That's where my daddy was raised. My daddy became a preacher. Isn't that interesting? That God turned the tide on that. I want to go back to Boozy Creek. I'm not going to look for the family recipe, don't worry. But I want to go back and find it. That's an ancestral pilgrimage. Do you see what that is? Does that make any sense? Here's another kind of pilgrimage. A missional pilgrimage. Go on a mission trip. I don't know if you guys have ever done that or not. Actually gone on a mission trip. Well, do it. Why not? Go on a mission trip. You don't even have to go overseas to go on a mission trip. I mean, you should go to somewhere different than Lyman. Like, you could do a mission trip, I guess. In fact, if you think of the whole world as the mission, that means that if you go to Walmart, that's a short-term mission trip, you know? You can just go there and be on a mission. But I'm talking about a different kind of mission trip. Like, go serve the homeless somewhere. Go to Mexico on a mission trip. Save up a little bit. Just go do something like that. If you can't go physically, then pray. Go on a prayer on a mission trip and learn as much as you can about the mission field you would go if you could. My friend Judy was that way. She was a prayer warrior. She was bedridden. She couldn't even get out of the house, but she traveled the whole world through her prayers. I went in to see her one day. I said, Judy, how are you doing? She says, great. I've been to Zambia. I've been to Liberia. I was just getting ready to go to North Korea. Do you want to come with me? And I said, sure. So we went on a prayer journey to North Korea. So you could do that. That's a pilgrimage, you see. You can take meaning and you can look at the world and learn about the world and just pack meaning right into that by taking these trips. If physically, maybe take a trip, but take a prayer trip. You could do it that way too. Here's another way to do a pilgrimage. I just made a list of them. Go out into the woods. Just take a walk in the wilderness. One thing I've learned down here, oh wow, I love about the South. Waterfalls. You guys have waterfalls down here. We didn't have those up in northern Wisconsin. They're all over the place. And every single one of them, what they're doing, they're thundering praise to God. The Bible says the trees of the field clap their hands. You know what that means? Like right now it's autumn, they're clapping their hands so hard they're falling off. Every tree is praising the Lord. So if you're stressed out, all overpressured, all this stuff going, maybe just go on a pilgrimage to the woods. Just take a walk in the woods. I can't even imagine returning from the woods as an atheist. Can you? Because the heavens declare the glory of God. All nature sings. It all does that. And so of course, when we're going into the woods, we're going to see the Creator because He's right there in all of His splendor, showing you His creation. That sets you straight. In fact, I'll bet you anything. There's somebody here that just needs to take a good walk in the woods because you've just been... There you go. Okay, walk in the woods. That's doctor's orders, all right? There you go. After the Pittsburgh game. Forget the ring. Here's another pilgrimage you can do. It's called a walkabout. A walkabout. Now, in Australia, the Aborigines do this. They actually put them out. This is part of their rite of passage. And so what they'll do is a young man will do a walkabout. They'll just wander. They'll go out wandering somewhere. Now, here's what happens to us. We don't do that quite so much. Go wander. You could just get out in the car and say, I'm going to go on a little drive. Lord, where are we going to go? Show me what you want to show me. I'm going to end up wherever you want to take me. I did that once and ended up in a monastery of all things. That was interesting. Met a little guy with a brown robe, a little monk. Father Reginald was his name. I never would have met Father Reginald if it hadn't been for going on it was a drive about. But there's another kind of walkabout that happens where you wander. That's when something happens to you that you didn't count on. And all of a sudden you're thrust into an unknown territory that you didn't understand. It could be a rejection that happened where somebody, maybe you lost your job, or maybe a painful divorce, or somebody that you loved died and it just changed everything. It could even be a move. Like when we moved a year ago, that happened to us. We went on a pilgrimage. We had to get rid of our stuff. We went through our old things, photo albums, things like that, because we're going through the move. And that became a very spiritual experience for us. Well, whatever kind of walkabout you end up with, maybe you're in a spot and you don't know exactly what's going to come next, and you're just kind of, oh, wow, I'm in this in-between period in my life. Lord, I didn't figure on this. Well, maybe you can just turn that into a pilgrimage. Say, okay, Lord, I'm on a journey. I don't know why I'm out in the wilderness. I'm in the valley of Baca right now. Could you just put some streams of water into this right now? Could you show me? Could you show me? Show me the new things you want to teach me from this. Let me glean. Let me get something from it. You're going to go through it. Why not grow through it? If you're going to go, put an R into it and grow. And the walkabout can be surprising. There'll be brand new things that you never even imagined. Look at that. I never dreamed that I would know this about myself. And thank you, God. You gave me something beautiful there. I got two more. One is a retreat, just a personal retreat. You can do this with other people, like there's a women's retreat in South Carolina. Anybody go on that? To the women's retreat? Oh, we have men's retreats. They have, but you can also go on your own retreat. Just you and God, and go away for a little while, and maybe just you and your Bible and a notebook, and say, okay, God, can you give me something? And He will. He'll show you if you take that space. And my last pilgrimage is the interior pilgrimage. This is a pilgrimage where you actually go deep, deep down inside yourself to find out why you do things the way you do. And so, particularly, you want to explore these things. Your frustrations, your anxieties, and your sorrows. And when you look at your frustrations, what is it that just irritates the daylights out of me? Why? Why is that happening? Why is it that every single time she says that just drives me up the wall? Why? Explore these things. It's an interior pilgrimage. You'll find out something beautiful about yourself if you risk going there. Your sorrows, the griefs that I've had in my life, and I look back into my relationships with these people that have died, or the losses that I've had. What meaning can I gain from it? My anxieties. What is it that just winds me up tighter than a drum? Why? And when we begin to explore these things, we realize that God is our strength, that He speaks words of life into our situations. He heals our broken hearts. He mends our anxious spirits. He takes care of these things for us. But we have to be brave enough to go there. Blessed are those, it says, whose strength is in you, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage. As they pass through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. With my boys, I have 4 boys and a girl, and all 4 of the boys, and I haven't done it yet with my daughter. I need to. Kathy did with her. What I did with them is we did a father-son kind of outing where I would say, okay, you're going to graduate from high school, so I'm going to take you somewhere on a trip. I've been to trips with my daughter too, but not like this. Kathy did one with her like this. Anyway, but I said, you can pick anywhere you want in the United States as long as it's reasonable, and I'll take you there. And we're going to go on a little pilgrimage together. And so my son Luke, he decided, stupidest thing, I couldn't believe he decided this. He said, I want to go to Pikes Peak. And I said, oh, that's great. I like Pikes Peak. I'd love to go to Colorado. Never been there. I've never seen a 14,000 foot mountain that, close. I'd love to. He said, I'd like to hike it, he said. I said, hike it? No, wait a minute. That's a different story. I mean, there are trams that go to the top of Pikes Peak. There's a road that goes to the top of Pikes Peak. Why on earth would you want to hike? He said, but wouldn't that be fun, Dad? We'll put on backpacks, we'll hike up halfway, we'll camp out overnight. Oh, we could have a little fire, then we go on up the rest of it. Wouldn't that just be awesome, Dad? Well, I did it. I actually did it. I can't believe I did it. It was the most grueling, most exhausting, the hardest physical taxing thing that I've ever done in my entire life. I practiced like crazy. I wore out a pair of hiking shoes trying to get ready to go on up Pikes Peak. And maybe you don't think it's a big deal, to hike to the top of a mountain that has a donut shop on top of it. But for me, it was like the biggest deal ever. I'm not a physical fitness specimen. That's just not me, but we did it. And so we're hiking up, and here's what we found out. The higher we hiked on this pilgrimage, the harder it got. The farther along the journey we went, the harder it got. Part of it was just because it was steeper, and the other part was because the oxygen level just kept diminishing, and I'm gasping for breath. And so there was a song I kept going, I'm pressing on the upward way, new heights I'm gaining every day. Well, I had a new perspective on that song. We made it past the tree line, and then we're just continuing on up towards the summit, and there was this sign. The sign says, at this spot, Ernestine Roberts, age 91, died on her 14th ascent to the top of Pikes Peak. And I leaned over to Luke and I said, well, at least we beat Ernestine, I said. And we made our way all the way up to the top. And we ran into a hiker, an experienced hiker, who had done this many times. And it was hard. I mean, we used to barely take steps and we'd have to stop. And here's what he said. He said, just take one little step at a time and rest whenever you need to. And that's how you get to the top. Take one little step at a time and rest whenever you need to. And that's what we did. Step by step by step along the way until I could see it. I could just see it in the distance. The roof of the donut shop. There it was. There it was. And we made our way up the 14 golden stairs. And there were more than 14, and they weren't golden, but they were brutal. But we did it. We climbed all the way up. And as we rounded the bend with our hiking sticks, gasping for breath, and we make our way to the top, and the train had just arrived, and all the tourists got off, and some of them pointed and said, look at that, they hiked all the way to the top of Pikes Peak. And I go, that's the way I felt. It was amazing. Those donuts were delicious. They were awesome. They were wonderful. The best donuts I ever had in my whole life. Then I took the tram down. I close with that story because that's the way the pilgrimage works. That as you draw meaning from your experiences in life, as you look on every little trip as a mission trip, and God's teaching you things all along the way, and as you're on this journey and you're gleaning new things, as you're taking step by step, and you rest whenever you need to, and just take it one step at a time, that's what you do. And guess what? There's joy, joy, joy at the end of the journey. And when you get to the end of the journey, someday, it's more than a donut shop up there. He'll say, welcome home. Let's pray together. Lord, thank you. Thank you for this beautiful place that represents peace and home, a spiritual home for all the brothers and sisters here. And we thank you that you call us to a journey that's far beyond what we ever would imagine. It's so rich and deep and meaningful. And help us not to just skate through life, but to dive down deep into it. To live, really live every moment that we have. To think of life itself as a great pilgrimage. And we thank you for the home that we have on the other side, that you're beckoning us towards. Help us to live faithfully for you and to pack as much meaning into it as we can all along the way. We love you, Lord, and we thank you, and we praise you. In Jesus' name. And all God's children said, Amen. Amen. All right.